always looking for Black history projects and little stories that a lot of people don't hear about. Years ago, I'm thinking 2006, 2007-ish, something like that. I stumbled my way to LaPageville. Just driving inadvertently, always looking for something. That's how I am. I'm wondering that way. Because I pull up to the side of the road with my wife in the car. There's a historical marker I haven't seen. And I'll pull right over and start filming, taking photos. And I took several photos and some video of a billboard you had there at one time. There's a wooden billboard with a number of photographs over there. So what I did, I took some videos, I took individual photos of all that you had there, but I just didn't know the point of contact at that time. We're talking about, like, again, 2006, 2007. So I have these old photographs taken of that billboard that was since been taken down. It's no longer there. And so when I became part of the Friends of the Library at Savannah State, that's when Professor Westfield shared with me LaPageville, and I said, oh, several years ago, and I have these old photographs, and LaPageville would look like in that board that really caught me. But at that time, I didn't know who was point of contact to get in touch with.
So it'll be good for us to look at those. Did you actually go up in the back in the wooded area where the?
No, I didn't know how far it went or anything like that.
Right.
There is a tabletop sign
Now, yes.
underneath the arch.
Yes.
It's got a couple of photos and a narrative.
Yes, then there's this, yes, that wasn't there at that time. Yes, but the billboard, I don't know who took it down.
Well, it was pretty much falling apart.
But, so we'll work on that. Those are some starting places, Dr. Bryant, Emmanuel, and maybe some others. We have reached out via social media, word of mouth, like, do you have any artifacts? Do you have any old funeral programs from those days? And we don't have anything yet, so maybe a larger article in the morning news might do the trick. And the church records are lost too, so yeah, that's disappointing. It's now the Thomasville Missionary Baptist Church.
I will reach out to Reverend Matthew Southall Brown, Senior's daughter. He kept everything, believe it or not. He was a master record keeper, and he was, outside of Reverend Daniels, the longest serving moderator of the Berean Missionary Baptist Church Association. And he kept every record of the Berean as a duplicate to himself. So I will reach out to his daughter to see, as they put everything in totes, to see if she may remember seeing something about LaPageville in some of the papers he kept. And I do know they turned over a good portion of the Georgia Historical for preservation as well, but he kept everything.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, and there are a number of death certificates, I think, 60, 70, somewhere in that range. That we have copies of it with the picture on.
Yeah. So, two things. In 2018, when we had the symposium, Reverend Brown was one of our speakers. But we have not followed up with, is it Maxine?
Maxine.
Okay. The Friends of the Library that Mr. Branch and I serve on, the brother Leonard is also a member of that. We've not thought to ask him about.
And he would know very well, because he went through most of his father's records, and I sat down with him and we were talking about what to do to preserve Reverend Brown's papers, because he kept everything that had importance to him, especially as it related to African American history. And so, he pastored that side of town for a very long time. And was moderator along with the sister church up the street. And most of those churches have a connection either with the founding pastor pastor or the second pastor of the church, and so I'd like to see who the pastor of that church may have been, and try to connect the dots, because those churches have minutes and those sort of things, because your
Right.
grandfather was not the
Great. What?
George Palmer.
So you're gonna take that project on?
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Right, thank you so much. See how it's working, y'all? It's working already. All right, so, and what else was I, the death certificates and birth records too, because it gives birth and death. So when I first started out, we were just searching for LaPageville. And just from hearing people talk, the descendants and different things, just casually talking, I found about the other names and the variations on the spellings. I don't know what would account for that, but that's usual when you're working in ancestry. Census takers didn't always write things down exactly. They didn't know how to spell. And so these are the death records for Bruton Hill, BRU, Bruton Hill, BREWTON, and LaPageville. If you'd like to take a look. If we have the walk around LaPageville on Saturday, and it looks like we're not, because the rain chance is going up from 20% to 60% with chance of storms and a possible weather alert date. So we'll talk about that after everybody leaves. We may have to cancel that. So, don't plan. So, yeah, it's going out again. So, yeah, so I think we're getting some good ideas here, making connections. That's what we need to do. You know, Savannah is all about, it's not what you know, what is it that they say? It's who you know, right? It's not what you know, it's who you know. So, we're going to share our information that we have so far concerning the application. And yeah, because I really need to get another set of eyes on this. Dan is working on, I think there are two portions that deal with the landscaping. And he's filling that in. But before we even send it off, I don't like to waste time. Life is too short. So let's have some other people look at it to say, oh, they may not accept this answer. Can you reframe it? You might have a better chance. So we're looking at people with experience submitting those applications. It is now 12:01, and I don't like going over. Do we answer? I think we've gotten a start. So, you know what our next steps would be. And there was one area we did not talk about, but I know on the flyer I sent out to you, creativity. What are possible creatives that can come out of this? And I believe in writing community stories, right? In 2016, one of the descendants' brands, Mr. Andrew Williams, had a book release and lecture that we did at Savannah State. And this is specifically on LaPageville. It's called Field of Souls. That is his cousin, Brenda Ponder back there, taking the pictures. And so there are other ways to preserve culture and history. And like I said, Servant Branch and I work on these other projects too. And when Dr. Kwesi DeGraff Hansen came to do our lecture in February concerning the weeping time, he stressed the point that there are other ways, writing poetry, writing stories, photography. All right, so that's another way of preservation. It does not cost anything, but it's tapping into the talents of our young people and not so young people, you know. All right, so just for an example, this is not related to LaPageville, but this is my book. And I pretty much write about what used to be and still is the East Side and my roots in South Carolina, the Charleston area and across the bridge in LaPageville. But in the Savannah section, you'll find the history of what they now call the Dundee Cove. Well, that was our street. I lived on Dundee. You know, so this just shows you, like, using documentation, you know, and pictures, you can help to preserve church histories. There are creative ways to do it. So let's think of that. Let's put that on the table for LaPageville as well. I haven't been inspired yet, but you know, you got to have the right moment. I welcome you to come up to the table before you leave. These are just a few things. Ms. Jenkins put together this little book of history here. I've added a few things to it, such as the death records and, you know, example of creativity. Tom Barton and Jane Fishman also wrote about LaPageville in the past. So we got to keep it going, and we thank you so much. Any lasting comments from any of you? Yes.
Thank you so much. So I have a question. In some of your presentation, you seem to suggest that the Descendants group has a lease that extends not just to the cemetery, but also to the former village location. Is that right? Or is the 3.5 acres all cemetery?
Yes, the 3.85 acres is mostly cemetery. And, Dan, you want to address that part?
Well, it is, yeah, the 3.85 is what was determined, but state is the cemetery. Granted, it extended beyond that, but it was supposedly land that was behind the village, the homes that were built there. It didn't get built out like it was originally planned, so there was land back there. So that's where the cemetery began.
But the LaPageville community went even beyond.
Right,
where it
there's
is.
some old photographs and maps. There's a map that's on that sign, 1946 by the railroad, and they plot out where the houses were, the old street names, and it's on that sign, and I had redlined over it what is currently there, so you can kind of put yourself back there behind Parker's and Waffle House, relate with it, but yeah, it certainly extended beyond, and the burials went beyond there too. I mean,
Yes.
we know the trolley company that was built behind the cemetery, you know, that's where they dug up some of the remains.
Yes.
And I think it was a headstone that was found back there that disappeared.
There were descendants who saw the digging up going on, as I have been told. And, you know, at the time you may not think, okay, I should report this, but if you do, you know, you're poor, you're African American, are they gonna listen to you? They may have felt defeated, but, you know, thanks to, you know, higher powers, they now feel empowered to step forward and say, this is what happened. And I'm glad Mr. Ponder spoke about it. It was still fresh in his memory, you know. So that is why we're here. And, you know, I don't like to call the name, I don't myself. I know there are others in our community who would be out on social media jumping and screaming, calling the names of these other companies that participated in the removal. But, you know, like I said, we're trying to put a positive spin on this. You know, they might even be invited to come sit at this table one day. you know, LaPageville, the community, went all the way, you know, to, from what I look and see on this, it went to Presenred Street. So when you're sitting in Waffle House, you're sitting, you're eating where the community used to be. You know, all of that was done. You can see all of this in the, property records, the Chatham County, land maps and all of that, so,
No, get back to name calling for just a moment.
yeah.
My mom used to tell me, it's not so much what you say, but how you say it. And so we still can reach out to these same people,
Yes.
these same corporations, but not in the spirit of rock throwing. and finger
Exactly.
pointing.
Right.
But you never know. It's a different generation of that same company,
Right,
and they'll be on board.
right.
Now, what you say, but how do you say it?
And it goes all the way, you know where Parker's is? That was a Parker.
Let's get to this one.
As well.
Let's get to this one.
Yeah,
Reach out.
and so, behind there, we have pictures where, you know, there's some
There were some
I
dog
guess
pens
dog pens
back
and
there.
things like that.
That
have,
big.
pig pens too.
Pig pens, yeah.
So some of the wood and wiring back
Like
there.
that.
Those things are back there. We reached out, asking if we could just have the artifacts. If not, let us go back to take pictures or something. That's documentation. But, the response when it did come was not very positive, so. They're not willing to do anything that might include digging up, but we're not asking. We just want access to document what's left back there.
When you said that, who was that?
Hoppers, Greg Hopper, I will say that name, because it's there. Public record.
And
And
I just so I'm clear, 'cause I'm probably one of the most direct politicians you've ever met. Did anybody directly talk to Mr. Parker, or was
No.
it, okay?
I've emailed, been in touch with his daughter, Olivia Hopper. Yes. But we have not made any progress on that, so.
Patricia Jenkins, I thought was, gonna reach out to them about allowing us to have access
I don't
on
know
that.
if she did or
somewhere
not.
back there. She might not have done it, but, it's hard to say what's what, because there's a lot of homeless encampments back there, so you got different things. Construction debris dumped back there, so you don't really know where is this remnants of one of the homes or not. But I do know the post back there, the dog pens, 'cause they had hunting dogs back there.
And even on the side, that was deeded over to the corporation here, you know, one of the disturbing things to me, in past efforts to do cleanups, I strongly believe that treasures were thrown away mistaken for trash. And I'm glad I've been present when we've had, like a beautification project, just putting down plants, and not even having to dig far. The volunteers discovered some things that are, you know, safely put up, and I wish I thought about them before this morning to lay out here on the table, but I said, no, some people might be weirded out, but it's not on the cemetery side, it's like where the houses were. But on the cemetery side, I remember this big mound of things, right? And, I spoke about LaPageville in the cemetery, this was several years ago at the Southern Humanities Conference. Person from the conference wanted to go, she wanted to see it that day. And just, you know, rifling through that trash, she found this old, the remnant of an old lantern, you know? And so there's several things back there, you know, that if we ever had the money to add some kind of like museum, like a mini museum or something on the site. We have things that could go in there. And I believe there are other treasures in there. And I did mention too, there are no markers there at all that we know of. And I don't know how closely anyone has looked in the last several years, but I was told that there are no markers, and I've taken that as true. But 3 of the tombstones were removed from LaPageville, and they were relocated at the Evergreen Cemetery, which is now owned by the city. But the bodies were not moved. Have you ever heard of a situation like that? So,
Well, we were told they were moved to protect them, so that they wouldn't get stolen.
yeah,
That
and maybe a good thing too. At least 3 of them survived.
Right, so they're still there.
And so we have to go out to Evergreen now to make sure that they're still at Evergreen.
You're rude and leave, and I'm so sorry, it's so nice to meet all of you. I'm also heading to a meeting. I will email you today or tomorrow so that you'll have mine and Ellie's emails.
Okay,
If you could share, the presentation and other things, and Ellie and I have some other ideas, and I'm happy to be invited and included, happy to meet all of you today. We do have some ideas to share.
okay,
I know Ellie's already bubbling with ideas, so I
oh,
can tell.
wow. Would you
But
be
thank
willing to come back for another
Yes,
session?
absolutely. I'll try not to have a meeting afterwards, I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, these things happen.
So thank you. Thank you. Very nice to meet all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan Adler again is with Historic Savannah Foundation. They're doing some amazing things. And we're also friends of the Kaya branch.
I know you are. I know you are.
Oh, did you?
Okay, well, great. Well, thank you. Have a nice
Thank you.
afternoon.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Anything else? I've spoken too much. I know, this was supposed to be an hour, and, some of you took time off from work, or whatever. But I think it's been great today. And I actually have to, say also, Senator Mallon does so much. He works behind the scenes. I have to thank my little grandnephew. Because of something he's doing, I found out that, Senator Mallow is working on this East Side documentation.
We're a place-based nonprofit, so what we are doing is to, basically, when you talk about neighborhood transformation or revitalization, I've lived on the east side for a very long time, and I went to Head Start on the east side. My first library card was in Hitch Village. And if you look at Hitch Village today, there's no library, there's no Head Start. So we're bringing some of the things back that the community on the east side once had. And so we got this huge boundary that we're working in, because it has a great history that's not really told. If you aren't from the east side, then you don't know why the Old Fort is called the Old Fort. If you say Central Missionary Baptist Church, there's 2. There's one in Thunderbolt, and there's Central and Hitch Village, but it's called the Old Fort.
Yes.
And the reason it's called the Old Fort is exactly what you talked about earlier, coming from the Revolution. The history between the east side, and you talk about the Native Americans that lived there. Wheaton Street and Skidaway are the last 2 remaining roads that were the Indian footpaths. And that's why Wheaton Street is Wheaton Street and Skidaway is Skidaway. And the other one is Indian Street, which is downtown Savannah. So they kept those footpaths and turned them into roads, which were the original Native American footpaths, which is why it's set the way it is. So there's a great history, but it's not intertwined. We're outside of the historic district.
Yes.
And so we understand that there's a need to preserve history, to also tell the story. But we also understand that there's a need for economic uplift inside the community with improvements in housing and the quality of living. So in order to do that, we had this crazy idea. Some businessmen in Savannah got together and went to Atlanta and went to East Lake and saw what they had done with Tom Cousins and Purpose-Built Communities. And we are bringing that model to Savannah to make holistic change on the east side. So that's credit college education, community wellness, economic vitality, and mixed income housing, so that we can address some of the issues. But a part of that work is also discussing the history and how do you preserve that history? How do you share the story so folks can be informed of the people that lived on the east side and what was here, so everybody can know. And I think that's important to the work that we're doing.
So I I saw his East Side project, and I said, oh, he's gotta be here, because we were right here on the East Side. And something you said, I just recall, one of the major parts of this, history, back in 1967, was an agency who went in and said, oh, these, houses are substandard, they're not fit for human use. And so they made the recommendation to tear the houses and everything down. Well, the church decided that they were gonna also tear down. But they were invited to be a part of this too, because I feel as if, okay, now all the intentions were good, and they said they would help these people rebuild. They created a work co-op so that the women could have little jobs, you know, during the transition. Y'all know what I'm talking about? So anyway, and it's in one of the articles here. I reached out to that agency. Well, you know, we understand you weren't a part of the original decision, but we'd like you to be here as we talk about ways to bring back the history, and haven't heard one thing from them. So anyway, I'll tell you who that is. So you can look through the book and see it. It's right there in the Presenred Morning News article. And right there. So thanks again. That is all that I have. I'm gonna let you go. And we will adjourn this meeting today. And look forward to our next steps. Okay? Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Dick and Savannah was at our symposium on one of the panels, and so I invited them back, and they came, showed up.
I wasn't
From
here
Georgia
for the
Southern.
last